Thank you very much. The chairman has asked me to recognize Mr. Rosen.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I've spent most of the last 5 years in Iraq, especially with Sunni and Shia militiamen and in mosques and powers of center, other than the green zone. So I hope to give you a different perspective. I last left Iraq in last February, a month ago, a little over a month ago. The Bush administration and the U.S. military have stopped talking of Iraq as a grand project of nation building. The American media has obeyed this as well, and they have also abandoned the larger narrative, presenting Iraq as a series of small pieces. And just as Iraq is being physically deconstructed, it's also being intellectually deconstructed. It's no longer a state undergoing an occupation and a civil war and a transition, but small stories of local heroes and villains and well-meaning American soldiers, of good news here and progress there, but the whole is much less than the sum of its parts. Iraq is basically Somalia, leaving aside Kurdistan. When I talk about Iraq, I'm not referring to Kurdistan. You have warlords and militias controlling fiefdoms. Most of the experts who give their opinion on Iraq, such as Fred Kagan from the American Enterprise Institute, people who don't speak Arabic, who go around on babysat tours with the American soldiers, the view they present of Iraq is false, and it's very dangerous to rely on them, and they've done you a disservice. There's no shortage of Iraqis, and I applaud you for bringing Mr. Saeed, Iraqis who can speak for themselves and journalists who spent much of their time there. Now it's true that fewer Americans are dying in Iraq, and perhaps from a purely American point of view that's a success, but less Americans are dying in Iraq because Iraq is no longer, the dominant story is no longer a resistance to a foreign occupation. It's no longer a war of national liberation. Less Americans are dying because Iraq has been in a civil war. Less Americans are dying because Iraq is now a battle for control between various Iraqi factions. And the proper standard for judging progress in Iraq isn't the number of American deaths, but it's the quality of life for Iraqis. And unfortunately, for most Iraqis, life under Saddam was better. Even opponents of Saddam are saying this, and I was just a few weeks ago with people from the Mahdi army asking them, after 5 years, was life better for you under Saddam? And they said, yes, it was. Iraq doesn't exist today.